Don't know who I am. I'm Ken Rahjes. I'm from a little community of Agra. Now, Agra's up in Phillips County, so it's about 3.5 hours from here, north of Hayes. I've been in the legislature for 11 years, served as chairman of Agriculture and Natural Resources right now. I've been serving in higher ed. I've served on appropriations. I've served on taxation. I've served on a lot of committees. I understand the workings of state government and what to go on. I'm a small business owner. So, the legislature has a little, but you still have to work, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that you have to be right with the folks that you represent. And those retired, now that's a different story, but those of us that are working age should still be working and should not become those professional ones. That's all we do is serve in the legislature. I think you lose something in that. I've been married to my wife. We've 36 years here in just a few weeks. We have 4 grown kids, all done with college and fully employed, have a granddaughter, and we actually live a quarter mile from where I grew up in my grandparents' house. Was built in the early 60s. And so I know, there's other places to be. Now, I have lived in other places around the state of Kansas. I was born here in Wichita. I was adopted by a great family who treated me just like a Rahjes, like everyone else. I've lived in Johnson County. I've lived in Tonganoxie. I've lived in Emporia. I was on the air all over Kansas. So I have a good representation. I've been to 105 counties multiple times. This isn't just something you get in and cars, oh, this is amazing. No, I've probably been there many times over my career. So that's a little bit about me. I'm comfortable in a suit. I'm comfortable in a pair of jeans. I'm comfortable, I've owned cattle in the past. I don't have any cattle right now. We're in the process of waiting for it to dry out. Who ever thought that in Kansas? But wheat still needs to be cut all over the state. There's some concern there. We have some weeds coming up, but we're still very much with our thumb on the pulse of Kansas agriculture and the Kansas economy.
I think he's still here. Yes, he is. Stephen Johnson, our state treasurer, by the way, is still here. Thank you for coming down, by the way, Stephen. Arguably, the best ad the last election cycle was Stephen Johnson out in a farm field with his computer there with the receipt coming out of it. But I got to say, so far the best ad running is your candidate, your governor candidate, Scott Schwab, with the BALD plan. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty darn good ad. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your property tax plan, your vision for property tax.
Well, BALD, if you don't know Scott's a little follically challenged, and so as we were looking at what kind of plan to really get the attention, because that is the number one issue. We go out and about, it doesn't matter whether you're in Liberal, where I was just a day or so ago, to up in small communities in northeast Kansas, to up in northwest Kansas, or my home. I go into the coffee shop, people say, my property taxes are getting me, what's your plan? Because they know about it. So better affordable living by decreasing property taxes. There's a 9-point plan. You can find it at scottschwab.com and all the different things. Of those 9, 3 were actually presented to the legislature this year. We believe when we're successful in August, successful in November, with that working relationship, we will bring to the legislature that we will get those things passed. These are something that we will sit down with the leadership and with the chairman of the tax committee in both the House and the Senate to say, let's negotiate, let's get this done, something that will pass that will truly bring property tax relief, not only from folks that are retired, but young folks that are trying to live that American dream and buy that first house. And one of them is, I have a son who just the other day called up and said, Dad, he has a 2-bedroom house, single, but he says, hey, I don't know if I can afford to stay in my house. And that's heartbreaking. We hear the stories of those that have to make a decision. After they paid their house 20 years ago, paid it off, their property taxes are far greater than their mortgage ever was. And that's why with this BALD plan, we believe there are things to be successful. One of the highlights, John, is it puts the folks in local control. And we will also do a deep dive into that as we look at the valuation system. Instead of having multiple different ways to value property, that there will be a uniform way so that there's not one versus the other, or that you have these skyrocketing situations. Also, counties want to do a tax increase, it goes to the vote of the people. That is something that has to happen. We have to get back in the local control of the voters who elect those county commissioners.
Ken, you served in the legislature, in the House. I served in the House. I'm curious, up until just this year, which was the first time in 25 years, the legislators got a pay raise. Prior to that, I mean, when I was in the House, for perspective for our audience, my biggest paycheck in the legislature was $11,000. Most years, I had to actually write a check to the state of Kansas because my health insurance was more than my pay. This is the first time y'all actually got a decent pay. I'm curious, that one of the campaigns is making a lot of hay on this concept of career politicians. I'm curious, you're there 90 days. I'm curious what you think of that notion of being a quote-unquote career politician. I'm just curious.
Every day I was at the legislature, I worked my, quote, real job. So I will tell you this much. I voted against that commission to look at a pay raise. I voted against every opportunity. If we could have had the opportunity to not have that COLA, if you will, that came in, because a lot of people made hay about, oh, state employees got 1%, you legislators got, what was 4, whatever. I don't know. Because it happened in the middle of the night, John. You don't do business that way. When I ran for the legislature, when I got in the legislature in 2014, I knew exactly what I was getting into. I knew because I had to work hard to pay my bills. I wasn't satisfied and going to say, oh, I'm going to do what the legislature pays. But also, let's also look, it's not just the legislature. Look at the other spots as well. The biggest pay raise was the governor. The governor now makes what a member of Congress makes, if you didn't know. That's a big jump. So, but my comment on that is, you have to be there a certain amount of time before you really can get progress. And we do have a lot of legislators that get in and think, I'm a new legislator. Everybody told me how great I was. I'm ready. I can get everything done in January. Well, January comes, and there's that order, and it just happens. And after about 5 years, and okay, you're in a place where people will listen to you, and you can build coalition. But the whole time, John, you have to continue to build coalitions, and that's where Scott and I think, have that advantage, is because both of us were served over a decade in that legislature. You elected Scott twice to be Secretary of State. And we have those relationships with many of those legislators that are coming back and some of the ones that will be elected. And so I think that's one of the keys that gets missing, is you have to have that partnership with the legislature, because a governor, we don't have executive orders. You can't say, this is the way it is. You must communicate, and you must have those relationships of getting things done for the Kansas people, and that's what we're looking forward to.
We're talking with Ken Rahjes, who's running for lieutenant governor with Scott Schwab. What would be your role as lieutenant governor in a Schwab administration?
Well, I think one thing that was brought up just a little bit today, but I'd like to go a little bit deeper into it. I will be his Secretary of Agriculture. That is probably where I am the strongest, where I have committed my life to being either production agriculture or talking about it. That, and be kind of the administration's voice for water. One of the things that's going on right now is the Water Task Force. It was my bill. We formed it. We're doing it now in the second year. There's going to be some legislation coming next year to how to look at a full statewide future of water in Kansas. It's more than just irrigators in the state of Kansas, but it's how can we make sure that Wichita, Salina, other places that are growing can have the water for industry to continue to move. Also, Water One, the ones that take care of Johnson County, and all our small communities. Everybody has a stake in water, and that's why it's so important, why we wanted to make sure the legislature was hand in hand, because they're the appropriators. We got to remember that the legislature and the administration should work hand in hand. I will tell you, the last 8 years has been a pretty dark cloud. We're ready to lift that cloud and to get back to the way you remember where it was when Governor Brownback and Governor Collier were there.
How do we keep? You're from a rural community. How do we grow our rural communities? All too often we hear about rural communities shrinking. How do we grow our rural communities?
Glad you asked. Well, we also have a plan that's called GENES. We like acronyms.
I noticed that. And, you like naming
things. And so
it's
jobs, education, agriculture, networking, and sustainability. And so I think you can't just write off rural Kansas. I'm not saying rural Kansas. As we found on the campaign trail, coming back to many of these places, there's such a great sense of pride. Whether your town's 100 or 10,000 or 100,000, everybody has a sense of pride. And so what we're going to do is we'll have programs, if communities want to be a part, to keep them going. We have many rural areas that are kind of food deserts. Maybe we don't have a restaurant. We don't have a grocery store that locals can take care of. Maybe, like me, I'm an hour away from a Walmart at Dillon's.
Everybody gets a Buc-ee's.
Well, let's see how the first one goes first.
Okay.
But those are the things. And I think by having somebody that lives and has a true grasp, not just a drive-by of rural Kansas, but also understanding, I'm one of the biggest supporters of aviation. Why? Because it's so important to our economy, but as well, aviation stretches far beyond Wichita. The district I represent, the 110th, two of our biggest companies that manufacture those little bitty parts, their biggest contractor is Garmin. All those little avionics that happen in Norton, Kansas. So I say the world does not fly with places like that in western Kansas.
What about property taxes? It's a major issue. What did you think of the property tax bill that came up in the House? Were you a supporter of that?
Well, as I said, our BALD plan is one that, as we look at how we can truly get that affordable living through reducing the taxes. In the legislature, there was a lot of discussion. Many times what came out of the Senate, I did not support. I did at the end. Why? Because sometimes you have to move forward. You have to go ahead and be part of that circle that moves things forward. If you're always digging your heels in and always being a no, it's very hard to get something done. It makes great rhetoric, John. It makes great postcards, and it makes great, ways to raise money. But are we really helping the Kansas people? So that's where I think when we're in there, we will work with House and Senate both on a sensible plan that will be passed by both houses and then signed by the governor, and then people will appreciate that property tax relief.
I've asked the other three. I'll ask you clemency. The clemency.
No.
I didn't even get to the question. No. Marijuana, recreational.
Nope.
No. Okay. Boy, you want to see the notes? Is it?
Sure.
Let's see. Solar. Solar. We've got some that two were just approved here in Wichita. Your thoughts on solar and data farms?
Right. I appreciate the question. There's a lot of discussion being held. There's a lot of people that have their knowledge either side. I've always been in all the above when it comes to energy because our energy needs continue to grow. Regardless of what our population is, we keep having more things that use energy. What our position is and what we say is this is local decisions. These are local decisions that need to be made by, again, folks that were elected, be it county commissioner, be it city council, be it whatever. Now, it also becomes on all of us, we make sure we have the right knowledge. Is there a role for the legislature? Well, there might be when it comes to some of these guardrails. Because one thing I think that we missed when these started coming in was what happens after their lifespan. We don't want to have, wind turbines that are just sitting there. We don't want to have empty buildings for data centers. So I think those are the things that you'll see the legislature work on. But ultimately, John, as it should be, back to the counties, back to those municipalities to make those decisions, because what is best for them is what should work, instead of somebody from Topeka telling you, is it good or not?
School choice?
School choice. Now, you probably know that's one thing where Scott and I don't necessarily fully agree. Scott is fully school choice. This year, I did vote.
Tougher for you in a rural area.
And I understand because of the 11 districts that I represent are all, we're all keeping going, but we don't really have that choice. Now, I did vote this year long before this opportunity came to get that opportunity for scholarship money for private and publics. And I think we will get to the point. The situation, John, is if families are not pleased with the education they're getting, they have the opportunity to do that. And so I think that's going to be something with the Republican governor. We will get to a point where that will become the law in the state of Kansas.
Give you a minute to let folks know your closing thoughts.
Boy, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We love Kansas. Over 60,000 miles I put on that old car. my tire guy loves me because about every so often I go in and get new tires, and they're not $37.95 like they were when I first started driving. But the situation is this. We're ready to govern the state. We don't want to be governor, lieutenant governor. We want to do governor. Scott's been tested. You've elected him twice to be Secretary of State. We have the experience working, and we understand the situation with the legislative branch to get those things done. We're ready. We won't have to go, well, who do I talk to? Bring me a list of people to talk to. We know we will hit that ground running hard, knowing exactly what to do, and we believe that we're ready, and we're looking forward to the next, I don't know how many days. All I know is I just keep going.
I think it's 38,
yes.
38
until they tell me, okay, this is the day you go vote. I like to vote on the same day. I will go to Phillipsburg and cast my vote, and then do whatever needs to do to talk to folks. And that's the great thing about it, is you get out and you get to meet people and you hear their stories, because that is, we love Kansas, but folks are here because they love the state. And we need to make sure we give them the opportunity and the tools, and then get out of their way. I've heard that regardless of what I was running for. Just get out of our way. Let us do our thing. Help us if we need it, but go and let us do our thing. And that's what we're going to work on with help of the legislature and other great folks like you and the folks here today. So thanks for the opportunity.